And this one is from Gloria Steinem, very well-known feminist. She's a feminist, journalist, social and political activist who became nationally recognized as the leader and spokesperson for the National Organization of Women, the Feminist Movement in the late 1960s and early 1970s. A Time magazine article, "What would it be like if women win?" This was August 31st, 1970. The quote goes as follows, quote, "Housewives are dependent creatures who are still children, parasites," close quote. Wow. And Gloria Steinem wrote this or said this in Time magazine. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. To my best ability, I double-checked, triple-checked, because I was so shocked when I read these quotes. I mean, every single quote that is in my database, I had to read it several times because I couldn't believe what my eyes were telling me. And I did fact-check, and yes, that is factually correct. That was stated. And the feminist movement today, when I say the movement, I'm not talking about the individuals that make up the movement. I'm talking about the socio-political movement as defined by its most vocal adherents and leaders. This movement is trying to rebrand itself as male-friendly. And they're trying to sweep these kinds of quotes under the rug, so to speak, because they don't want the word to get out. Now, yes, that quote is absolutely correct. And it's quite interesting because when you listen to what the feminist ideology tells you it is, and you look at these quotes, and also understanding that behind these quotes are actions, when a leader of a movement stands up and presents to a whole mass of people a quote like that, they are representative of the movement. And if those quotes don't get challenged by established feminist splinter groups or feminist groups, then you can take it that those quotes are representative of the ideology.
And to your point, it's one thing to say, okay, well, I just had this quote, I was having a bad day or whatever, but because I am a leader of a of a movement, and not only do my words affect the way that people make decisions and how they decide to participate, but on a broader scale, it also affects legislation. It affects laws, and it affects how we all live. So there are downstream domino effect impacts. Let's go on to the next topic here. So I have 3 quotes here, and this is on the topic of raising children. This quote's by Dr. Mary Jo Bain. She's a feminist and assistant professor of education at Wesley College and associate director of the Schools College Center for Research on Women, assistant secretary of administration for children and families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services from 1993 to 1996, and was quoted in The Family, It's Surviving and Healthy by Dolores Barclay in Tulsa World, August 21st, 1977. This was Dr. Mary Jo Bain's quote, open quote. "In order to raise children with equality, we must take them away from families and communally raise them," close quote. Is she basically saying children should be taken away from their parents and raised by the state? Is that what she's saying?
That's exactly what she's saying. And this is why a lot of my quotations that I put in my database, I didn't just randomly select them. I went across a whole chunk of time, many decades, and I also tried to find similarities, which is why I established links between Marxism, cultural Marxism, what people know today as communism, and I actually prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a link between those ideologies. And yes, you're quite correct. I mean, how does a group of people stay in power? They stay in power by having voters vote for them. I mean, I always laugh at people when they say, "Oh, we got this terrible president, he's so corrupt," and this, that, the next thing. But who put that person in power? Who put that person in power? And the moment people realize that they have the power to, if they don't like a president, change it. Change it by the way you are as people, by being more critical of who you put in power. Don't have a voting system and not understand how that voting system is rigged because you're too blind or you're too complacent. Become more active thinkers. And this is why I challenge people to see me as a human being with, I can make mistakes. I'm putting the stuff in front of you. Critically examine it. Go and check up the references for yourself. Teach yourself how to think again and go and check all of this stuff up, because that's what governments want to take away. They want to take away your capacity to think for yourself. And the moment they do that, and the moment they have access to your children, they can teach your children how to think, because your children are not thinking for themselves. And that is how they stay in power. So absolutely. And if you study history, many countries, many nations, they've all demonstrated the same type of trend. You study fascism, World War II. The Nazis did this. They understood the power of propaganda. In fact, if you go back even further in history, the great libraries of Alexandria were burnt down. Now, why were those libraries burnt down? Because conquerors back then, many thousands of years ago, understood the power of taking away a person's ability to think. So they'll burn your books, they'll burn your libraries, and then they'll teach your children how to think, and that is how they stay in power. History repeating itself. So absolutely, that quote is saying what do you think it says.
You can use that example of, the government telling you how to think. When you watch any YouTube clip or any news report, for example, on North Korea, and President walks out, Kim Jong-il, I believe his name is, and how if you are not praising him and fervently enough, that can work against you. That can be problematic. It's a social conditioning to behave and think a certain way, even if you don't believe it. If you say it enough, you start to believe the myth. So here's another quote you have here. Simone de Beauvoir, French writer, intellectual, existentialist philosopher, political activist, feminist, and social theorist. Sex, Society, and the Female Dilemma, Saturday Review, June 14th, 1975. Simone de Beauvoir says this, quote, "No woman should be authorized to stay at home and raise her children. Society should be totally different. Women should not have that choice precisely because if there is such a choice, too many women will make that one." Close quote.
Wow. How's that for empowering women and giving them equality by taking options away from them?
The third quote I'll give you on this topic. This is by Margaret Sanger, feminist icon and founder of Planned Parenthood, in Women and the New Race. This is from page 67 of that document. The quote goes like this, open quote, "The most merciful thing a large family can do to one of its infant members is to kill it," close quote. What?
Absolutely. And you know that Margaret Sanger was a firm believer in Hitler's eugenics program. Adolf Hitler, that's
what?
Correct. Go and look it up. It's absolutely correct. And a lot of people don't realize this. And as we all know, for those of us in the know, of course, Planned Parenthood is directly funded by government. A lot of money's pumped into that organization, and there's even been an attempt to defund. And I'm not sure how far along that motion is, but don't be surprised if that motion is overthrown. And this is a company that is tampering in the gene pool. They want, don't think that fascism died with World War II. It hasn't. It is a colorless, genderless enemy.
If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, join our Facebook page called The Man Cave by Gentlemen United. All of our shows, tons of additional content, and invitations to future shows are posted there. You can add to the conversation and suggest future discussion topics. Please like, comment, share, and most of all, subscribe by clicking the Gentlemen United icon. I promise it's free. Thanks again for joining us in The Man Cave.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in The Man Cave.